I woke up one morning in my flat in Wimbledon, incredibly paranoid, stressed, and yeah, like didn't know what was going on. And yeah, I guess that was kind of accumulation of, yeah, probably stress at work and working all hours, partying, going out to some great parties during the evening. Um, and yeah, so that I was off work for probably the best part of a year.
Hi, I'm Liv Nunn, and this is the mess we're in, i.e., life. Because life is, in fact, one big mess that we are all trying to make sense of and navigate our way through. The universe itself is a vast expanse of unorganised chaos. Stars are exploding all over the place, which makes me feel a sense of ease. I want to enable conversations that allow us to all embrace our mess at every level, or at least feel open and comfortable talking about it. I hope you enjoy our ramblings. Hello, Jon. Hi there.
Hey, how you doing, Liv?
Hello, welcome, Jon Salmon. I am feeling sprightly and well at this point in the afternoon. I'm glad that it's coming to the close of the day, and I'm really, really, really thrilled, chuffed to have you on to have this chat with me. Thank you so much because ever since we met, I have thought I've found you very inspiring, and I've thought that you are a real example of someone who has embraced or sort of taken any, let's say, messy situation that they may have encountered and really learnt and used it to support others and to bring conversations out into the open on so many different levels. And I just can't wait to have this chat with you. I'm very grateful to have you on. Thank you.
Hey, Liv. Yeah, no, that's very kind of you to say, and yeah, I think you're probably right. It has been a lot of mess.
Go on. I just can't. One thing that the more I have this conversation, I'm going to start by asking you actually, what constitutes or how would you define mess?
Yeah, because I think it was in your second podcast, I think, where you kind of got the dictionary out, didn't you? And you were talking about how mess
Dictionary
derived
definition.
from food in
Yeah.
like a mess, and so yeah, and I think it's different stages of your life, isn't it? So the kind of mess in my life at the moment, I kind of actually I feel we'll probably touch on it a bit later. Like what you would traditionally count as mess feels less messy for me at the moment, but kind of work mess and like looking at you recording this, and I think it's only Monday, right? And I've still got about 20 tabs open on my browser, and it's only Monday afternoon, and so yeah, how I think of mess, yeah, does change a bit from over the years.
Day to day, hour to hour, week to week. Sorry, I know I launched you straight in there, but it's just really been sitting with me recently that mess in itself as a term, like as an overarching descriptive term, mess has got really negative connotations. And actually, you know, across all different like areas of our lives, psychological, physical, tangible, mess, it doesn't necessarily always have to be looked at like it as a derogatory word like messy, or is there other language which we can get into obviously that we might be able to use to define messy? Because I'm sitting here as well looking at the tabs on my screen, and just open right now above this conversation I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've got 15. I've got about 5 screen grabs open. This could be classed as messy, but actually perhaps I should just refer to it as disorganized, or that also no that also sounds negative, but just
Yeah.
unorderly, or in a certain order, certain patterns. I think that we need to find more terminology to define messy because, well, I think as well, once you have ridden through certain circumstances that you could class as messy and then come out of the other end of them, there's certainly a positive effect that can be then attached to them. And I think,
I think
yes,
so. Yeah, definitely. And I think this is why this podcast is really important because, yeah, I think you've got some way to go to reframing mess as something that is seen as a positive.
yeah,
Because I think people really do look on, that kind of inner voice that "Oh, I'm so messy and like my life's a mess or,
yeah,
yeah, a physical mess. So I think, yeah, to try and look at the positives of like life is a bit of a mess
yeah.
and yeah, we kind of got to embrace it a bit more.
Reframe it and find our ways to work through it. Exactly. So I want to give let's give you a bit of an introduction and talk a bit about you actually and your background and everything that you do because yeah, I mean again as I mentioned when we first started chatting, I sort of met you and immediately was like, wow, you are part of all these initiatives. You talk so brilliantly around mental health. You've started so many different schemes you're supporting. You've founded different charities. You're a trustee. There's so many strings to your bow as such. And I feel like you've got so much information and so many amazing connections. And yeah, you're involved in loads and loads of different things that raise awareness and have done lots of research into the field, especially of mental health. So when we are talking about the mess of the mind and the difficulties and challenges that we face, and especially with neurodiversity, tell me a little bit about yourself, about all the things that you're involved in. I really, really want to hear about Speakers Collective, which you're the co-CEO and founder of.
Yeah, it's still something I'm kind of it's a challenge really because I'm quite inquisitive and I like to like I guess I come to things as wanting to kind of help. So if there's an idea or something, I'll be hopefully a good cheerleader for somebody who's trying to get something off the ground. Um, and also, I think sometimes I can see things where something needs to change, I guess, and get quite excited or quite angry, both extremes of feelings to yeah want to do something about it, and I think that can be great, and that can be it gets you a real variety of things that you're doing. But it is a balance. At times it feels a bit ridiculous sometimes when I'm like, some of the different things that I'm doing. And I think, just like John, focus, just do one thing. Why are you kind of flicking through all these different things? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's definitely moments where I'm, you know, um, you feel like you are literally just wearing too many hats, and yeah, where's the boundary before you've probably taken on a bit too much that you can chew. But generally, I'm quite excitable when it comes to new ideas, and especially around kind of challenging stigma and discrimination, and that's really what the Speakers Collective really started about 6 or 7 years ago, to support people that were sharing their lived experience that probably didn't have much support. They're probably driven by a passion or something that came, something they'd overcome and wanting to make a positive change happen. But we definitely found out a number of years ago when we started out that those individuals, even though they may get their 15 minutes of fame with a charity or a campaign, that longer term drive to want to make change happen probably was still burning strong within that individual. But it can be quite a lonely place when you are maybe sharing your story about how you've overcome something. You don't necessarily have a big team of people around you. So Speakers Collective set up as a not-for-profit to support people that are doing that type of work.
Amazing. That's great. And that came about obviously through your own lived experience and your own sharing of your own story and your own struggles with mental health. I think that's. Do you mind talking a little bit about your own journey to where you are and how you
Yeah,
got.
yeah, of course, not at all. So, yeah, I think hopefully in 2025 now we understand that we all have mental health like we did physical health. But even you know, 5 years ago, there still was a real misunderstanding around mental illness, and I was involved in a campaign called Heads Together, which was the three kind of royals of William, Harry, and Kate at the time. And it's probably the first time that eight different mental health charities came together to really tackle that stigma that exists around mental illness. And yeah, my kind of brief story, I guess, and kind of connection to that is that my dad, my wonderful dad, who was an amazing individual and quite entrepreneurial, um, ended up getting very ill with his mental health, and he was very depressed. And after a period of time, sadly, he died by suicide. And I was 17 at the time, and there was practically, well, no support at all that was offered for me or my family. Um, and probably even if it had been offered, it definitely wasn't a time where that was actively kind of encouraged as a good thing to do. Um, and by, I guess, suppressing those kind of all of that trauma and everything that happened in my first job working for as the start of the internet. So 1999, I was working for a company called America Online, and I woke up one morning in my flat in Wimbledon, incredibly paranoid, stressed, and yeah, like didn't know what was going on. And yeah, I guess that was kind of accumulation of probably stress at work and working all hours, partying, going out to some great parties during the evening, um, and yeah, so that I was off work for probably the best part of a year, and
So, how many years after your dad died was that? Thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm really sorry. I really do empathise losing a parental figure at a young age, as
mm,
you know, totally different circumstances. But losing my mum age 13, I have some, understanding of childhood loss and trauma of
mm.
the effects of that after and how that can resurface later in life. So how many years after was it that you had this moment at work?
Yeah, so so that kind of came about four or so years, 4.5 years later.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of it was literally just the turn of the millennium. So I was in the hospital in 1999 in December. So I was able
Wow.
to kind of get out just before New Year. So not that that was pretty much just the start of things really, and how I was dealing with it. But I was at least able to see the new year in from my mum's home.
Okay. When you'd had that experience, like how did you, because that is a moment, isn't it, where you go, okay, did you have a lot of self-awareness at the time, thinking like, right, my mind is in, did you feel like you understood what was going on, that you were kind of in a situation that you didn't understand? Did you like correlate it to the loss of your dad? How did you deal with it at the time, and then how did that lead to the next phase?
Yeah, I guess at the time I hadn't got a clue what was going on. And I think also people around me probably were quite unsure and worried what had gone on. And also, we know now, even today, that access to mental health support is hard to get hold of. And initially, where the doctors had said that I'd had a short psychotic episode. That was kind of just pretty much it. And, I was kind of, once I was out of hospital, I was kind of back home, and, there was long periods of what I guess was turned into more kind of, and I guess kind of like depression. And so from that moment, and I was, I did get into a very dark spot. And luckily through my employer, quite late on, we found out that I could access CBT, so cognitive behavioural therapy, and I was able to go as a day patient to the Priory in northeast London. So that was really, it was a mixture of meeting other people that were going through similar things or even very different things, but um, that sharing and being in a safe space and being given time, and learning some techniques as well to kind of challenge some of those thoughts in your head to see if they're really true or not.
Yeah, exactly. And so often, I think, and I have been there also in terms of relating to how you or what you can and can't disclose at work, what you do or don't feel comfortable with, that almost like paranoia of exposing too much of yourself, showing too much vulnerability. How will that have a knock-on effect? I think it's very hard to speak up sometimes. Again, which is why what you have done off the back of your experiences and what you're doing now is so incredible and so valid and so important, because I think you realize gradually how much other people are actually having similar thoughts or experiences, and not all
Oh,
of them are
completely.
normal by any means. Not all of them are, because things can go to very, very different deep levels in the
Yeah.
human brain. But there is certainly a lot more happening within people's minds and within people's day to day than often we are privy to or allow each other to see. And so yeah, that's good advice in the first instance, to actually talk to your work or colleagues or people around you, and then seek that
Hmm.
help. Whilst it's hard, isn't it, now via the NHS especially, everything is so, oh, that's like just difficult. It's like everything is so overloaded, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think for me at the time, as I say, I was off work probably for a best part of a year. I did try to go back to that employer. So while they were pretty good at supporting me while I was off, kind of the kind of getting back into work was challenging, and so I ended up luckily finding a new job. But it was, I very much closed that chapter of my life, and my plan was never to open up that and share that. I just wanted to kind of draw a line under it. And, you think when something like that happens, you think everybody knows it anyway. But there was definitely, which is completely wrong, because you
Oh,
realize that most people are just worrying about themselves, as you
yeah,
kind of allude,
exactly.
of
I know.
everything
So
else
you,
going up here.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Presume that
yeah,
everybody's aware of what is happening to you, and actually, most people are just worrying about what they're doing at home later, and
yeah,
aren't thinking, "Oh, John's in
yeah. What's
hospital
John's? Yeah,
having a
completely.
psychotic episode." Yeah,
Um, So I think that was initially my main approach. Was I'd found the right things to hopefully keep my mental health kind of in check and not hopefully find myself in that situation again.
hmm,
But yeah, I definitely, the stigma is just massive. There was no way I was going to tell people about it. It was going
yeah,
to, you know, affect potential work opportunities. I thought it would protect, having relationships, you name it. If you said you had a mental illness or you'd had a mental health problem,
yeah.
it was, yeah, probably, or to me, it definitely felt at the time kind of career kind of ending. And
How old were you then?
yeah, so again, yeah, this kind of, yeah, early kind of 20s. So
Early 2000s. And it's, yes, so in your early 20s, yeah. And do you, because there is a lot of discussion now around, which again, I think is really healthy and is very worthwhile that it's happening now around um, young men and the suicide rates just being so at their highest and highest amongst young men. And I know you have you campaigned for Calm?
Yeah, I've done a few different projects with Calm. Yeah, so Calm is amazing. Yeah, mental health charity. Yeah, doing a lot of great work around suicide prevention, but also I think they've been very innovative and groundbreaking in their campaigns to try and grab people's attention. So yeah, yeah, an amazing charity.
Yes, because I just think it's so important to try and get, especially men who have more commonly been known to suppress or not be so open with their emotions and how they're feeling to speak up more and be more confident in speaking out.
And I think guys do want to speak. I think it's just trying to find the right spaces where they feel comfortable to do so.
Yeah, yeah. So how did it become that you ventured out and started your campaigning and speaking so openly about your experiences? How did it end up that you were getting to the biggest, most public of platforms with the Prince and Princess of Wales in that Heads Together
Yeah,
campaign in 2017?
yeah, and again, it was a surreal couple of years, and a truly, another groundbreaking campaign. I think kind of using the power of the royals to talk about something that just people hadn't spoken about was really did get people's kind of listening. Um, and the kind of I guess the kind of the link into how I found myself in that situation um, was one of the things that had really helped my mental health over the years had been running. And I've said this many times that kind of, you know, getting out of my bed was literally like running a marathon. And so running was something that I started off incredibly slowly doing, but had really helped my mental health. And yeah, I guess kind of talked about it earlier about those mixture of emotions sometimes that can drive me wanting to make change happen. And as I'm sorry, another sad story, but a friend she was an ex girlfriend of mine, and a number of years ago, and as far as I was aware, kind of Facebook told me that she was happy, had her second child, and everything was fine. And I got a call from her brother to say that sadly she'd taken her life and she'd been really struggling really hard with postnatal depression. And so to receive that news, as I say, was all the emotions. But in 2016, that was anger was probably the one that I was, I could understand just about maybe why my dad couldn't get the help that he needed. I could maybe just about understand how it was a bit, yeah, totally messy with me and getting the right kind of help. I kind of thought by 2016 that if you were having a baby, that you would be plugged into the health system, people would be a bit more aware of these things. And yeah, I I was just completely shocked. So I wanted to do something um, in her memory, and that was kind of the idea was I just kind of Googled to run the London Marathon, and I came across and I wanted to run for a charity that supported like young mothers, and there was a charity called Best Beginnings, and they were one of the 8 charities as part of Heads Together, um, and so that's what started my journey of talking about mental health.
It's so like it's so sad that these things have to be like fueled by such dark experiences and such, you know, horrible, heartbreaking things have to happen. That's the challenge that we face is trying to keep progressing everything without constantly having to also, you know, deal with people not still suffering and not getting the help they need and it not have to be prompted by it getting to the worst possible point before change is made. That's what always gets me, is like, why does it have to be that you have to hit absolute crisis or something absolutely dreadful has to happen in order to affect change? But I mean, good on you. Like, absolutely maximum respect to taking on. I haven't heard of Best Beginnings, actually. That's a charity I'd not heard of. There is, again, the postnatal depression and like postpartum help for mums is a huge conversation that I have been involved in for the last few years, or trying to again help spread the word and find different communities that access help to mums that are struggling postpartum, because again the NHS is so stretched. I had a postnatal mental health visitor visit me for, I think it was 6 weeks, and then they had to change her over anyway, and then the next one could only come for 2 weeks, and then that was that. And you kind of, you lose contact with that person, and you have to find your way. And in the grand scheme of things, after you've given birth and when your hormones are everywhere and you literally feel like you're in the biggest mess that's ever happened, or certainly if you have any kind of triggers into your mental health or past issues, then 6 to 8 weeks is nothing. It's just nothing.
Yeah, I think that's it. There is support out there,
Yeah,
as well. Where kind of I live is, there's things like Motherly Love and just
yeah,
kind of
no,
meetups, and
yeah.
um, yeah. So again, some amazing people have set things up to
But
offer
peer-to-peer
that kind
support
of
and
peer
stuff.
support.
Yeah, exactly. No, there are. There needs to be more. If only there was funding for all of it.
Yeah.
And so, did you run the marathon that year then?
Yep. So I ran the marathon in 2017, and as I say, the plan was, that was it. That was kind of the idea. I'd run the marathon, raise some money for a charity, and as I say, there was this kind of umbrella called Heads Together, but I didn't really know what that was at the time. And yeah, then it was early into my training that I got a phone call from the charity to say, would I be available to share a little bit of my story. And yeah, I don't historically, I wasn't somebody who felt comfortable doing public speaking. I'd always be, as a child in the classroom, I'd be at the back of the class looking down, hoping I was never going to be picked to speak. Um, but I was passionate about this, and so I kind of said yes, thinking it was going to be quite a small event. But it was, yeah, the launch of the kind of the marathon with the Royals, and so yeah, I shared my my story very publicly, including live TV. And I was because the Royals were involved. There was it was quite, I was given quite short notice, and you know when it was very, very public way of um, talking about what had happened. I'd never mentioned the word suicide out loud before.
Yes. No, well done you, because that's literally throwing you in right at the deep end, And I think there's
Yeah,
so much expectation actually in terms of public speaking on being very organized in the way you talk, having, you can't really afford to be messy or mess up,
yeah, yeah,
when you're.
yeah.
However, what I'm noticing more and more now is, because that's the nature of performance, isn't it? It's rehearsed. Like, even, I mean,
Mm,
live TV isn't. However, it's still you. There's lots of strict rules, isn't there, on live TV about what you can and can't and shouldn't do. And
mm,
what I think is really, really fascinating now, it was going around on social media for days afterwards, but Davina McCall recently on Comic Relief, I don't know if you saw, but she basically was in floods of tears as she was speaking, and
mm,
it was really, really like beautiful to watch actually, and the response and the support for her, just like showing her vulnerability. And she's done it a lot recently around her own experiences, and
yeah.
she's obviously had a brain operation. And I love her podcast Begin Again. I was listening to that the other day with this guy. You might know him, Owen O'Kane, or have heard of him. He's written a book. He's a
Mm.
psychotherapist, and he's written a book that I've just downloaded called Addicted to Anxiety that I'm going to listen to next. But she's been wonderful at expressing and advocating for showing our true emotions and like exposing our messy selves, because she was like, I've never felt this before and I've never told anyone that I felt it before, but actually this just happened to me and I was a total bundle of anxiety. And why do we not feel comfortable sharing that, and like sharing that there's hard things going on, how were
Yeah, I
you
mean,
how were you in that interview, out of interest? I haven't watched it. Did you get your words out fine? Were you
I've
messy? What was the
haven't. Yeah, no, I don't think I ever watched it back. And just back to Davina, just what an incredible human she is, and all the work she's done. Um, yeah, so it was because yeah, on that day, so yeah, I did like a live ITV lunchtime news piece, a pre-record with Channel 5, some interviews with some newspapers, and then I had to like leg it home to get my kids from nursery. And so yeah, and then over the next day or two, my phone would be pinging with messages saying, John, what's this about? Because people just didn't know. People hadn't, unless you had known me, 20 odd years, 15 years ago, you wouldn't have known the story that I shared. So there was, and again, that's also with family. And I think also when you decide to share something, you've got to be aware of a feeling strong enough to do it yourself, but also, you are going to create a ripple effect and an impact on other people when you are kind of sharing that kind of talking around those things. So, I was also very mindful, but I got to a point where I just thought I felt strong enough, and that if people were going to be maybe slightly upset with what I'd shared, I think generally I felt the kind of the plus and minuses of doing it versus not doing it was definitely in the favour of doing it.
Yeah, of course. When you say people would be upset, do you mean upset as in pissed off, or upset as in they would have been emotionally like affected, like, or
All the levels, yeah. I got like, so I think that's what I didn't expect, and kind of I got quite a few messages from people I didn't know via
yeah,
social medias,
yeah, yeah.
all really positive. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, and that was obviously really nice. It's a little bit overwhelming, but yeah, no. Also, with my mum and with my brothers and my wife, again, um, I'm sharing things that I've struggled to talk to people. Here I am on TV talking about it, but I struggle to talk about it to, some of the closest people in my life.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, no, I see what you mean, because that is when it goes to such a public forum, and then you are almost, I guess, you're sort of forced then to be able to excavate and start to go
Yeah,
into it. Because yeah, I mean, why would the attitude might be, well, if you can talk about it on TV, then why can't we have a discussion about it? But yeah, I understand. It must have been really overwhelming to then suddenly get all of this interest and yeah, just lots of emotional feedback, I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think the kind of why Speakers Collective is quite important, because it's kind of, yeah, linking back into that.
Yeah, great. And so, Speakers Collective, it kind of encompasses, it's like a sort of umbrella group, isn't it, for lots of people from many different backgrounds and with all different neurodiversities, and have gone through lots of different, um, yeah, what's the sort of contingent of people, the spectrum of people that are involved in that?
Yeah, it's literally anybody that's challenging some form of stigma or discrimination in society, and using their lived experience usually to hopefully bring understanding, empathy, knowledge, experience, signposting, and to hopefully inform others, either to get as you say, a better understanding, or role modeling, finding other people that are talking about it to make you feel less alone, and yeah, so again, it started off initially with a small group of us talking around mental health, but now it's, and that's when we have new members meetings. That's what's just amazing. It's a real privilege to be on those calls and hear the stories that people share and their reason why they're doing the work they're doing. I think it's yes, incredibly inspiring.
So flip around to now.
Mm.
What helps you deal with like mess that you encounter in your mind if you're feeling, because we all still get, have these moments and periods of time as I'm researching and learning and just thinking and accepting more and more in life at the moment that we fluctuate and we change and we evolve, and the way we feel and manage these things is constantly ever changing, and technology is ever changing. Have you got anything that you use? You mentioned running as a brilliant tool to tackle that mess in the mind. What else do you do?
Yeah, so running is been definitely the go-to for me to sort out a messy mind. It calms me like you wouldn't believe, and so definitely when I'm finding, really quite overwhelmed at times, going for a run really does do something. Yeah, sometimes almost you can be laughing at yourself while running, going, "Oh, and you can find I find a solution to certain things, or maybe I realize that it's not the stressor that I thought it was by running." And so
Yeah,
running was definitely my number one. I then bust my knee about 2 years ago, and then
yeah.
that was like, oh fuck, it's like, oh, what am I going to do now?
Mhm.
Um, like that was it. That was my kind of go-to. And so I started walking and set up a kind of a walking group that we kind of met up once a month.
Time to Talk, Waltham Forest, are they a walking group? I
Yeah, time to
feel.
talk Wolf and Forest. So yeah, we did these monthly well-being walks.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
again, quite selfishly, give me a reason to leave the house and go for a walk. But again, it sounds really cheesy, doesn't it? But it is a bit of a mindset thing. And I
Mm.
did, was just like running for me. I told myself this is going to help, and it did help. And then when it was walking for a purpose of like, oh, this is a well-being walk, we were like walking with other people. It was really relaxed, but we were looking around, we were looking at the trees, or we were taking in our environment a bit more. And so, whereas it didn't give me the kind of the physical kind of adrenaline hit of, you know, collapsing as a sweaty man after trying to run pretty slowly, I at least got some benefit from just being outside.
And it is nature. It's taking in nature, I think there are so many, like I have another friend who does a podcast. He is a leader, a walk leader, and I was chatting recently to some friends just about the power, and if you also just looking at how nature aligns with mess, right? The nature is the most messy of them all. When you look up at the trees and you think about the configuration of leaves and branches and roots, and that's no there's no order. Man has imposed order upon nature. Like we're the ones who decides to plant trees in lines before, when everything was growing fine, like, and everything can grow in almost any circumstances. Plants and trees, the wild is like, we have to look back, I think, and go to nature and go, nature manages, and it's very, very messy. No one was, we've enforced order onto nature. And, it's a good kind of benchmark, I think, for knowing that we can survive. We can survive the mess. Nature thrives in mess.
I think so. I think there you go. I think you've solved the problem of reframing messy. I think it's nature is messy, and look how beautiful it is.
Yeah, it is. And look how restorative it is. Exactly. When we feel messy, we need to go and spend time in nature for sure.
And one other thing that really helps me as well is music. And so whether that's sticking music on or and dancing around the kitchen when nobody else is there, or going to gigs. So and yeah, definitely part of me kind of getting my feet back on the ground was getting gigs in the diary. And sometimes we sometimes get annoyed now that artists, you buy a ticket and it's a year until they're going to perform. But I quite like that. There was something really nice about having gigs in the diary that were also like months away. So again, it was like I may be feeling a bit crap now, but hopefully by the time I get to that gig, I'll be in a bit of better frame of mind and look forward to that artist.
Well, it's delayed gratification, right, as well, which I'm trying to instill and teach my child in this world that we live in where everything is instant and you can get delivery to your doorstep and you can get Amazon there on the same day. And it's crazy. It's gone totally out of control. Whereas actually we need to try and practice a bit of delayed gratification to enable us to also just to slow down. I find that when and I've really been feeling it recently, actually, just a lot of stresses all hitting at once. I've had a work going on in my flat. I've had lots of things, huge, big campaigns going on at work. I've had difficulties working on, working out things for my daughter, like challenges upcoming, co-parenting, and it's hit at once. And I've just had to go, how do I slow everything down? I'm going to delete some apps. I need to restrict my time on social media. I need to make time to go outside. I need to purposefully like only listen to, I'm really bad at downloading 8 audiobooks, all different podcasts, getting into, you've known me for a little while now. My mind goes everywhere and I want to do everything and I want to start all these new things. And actually, I've had to go and teach myself to try and slowly tackle one thing at a time and make that a long-term project, for example, rather than make everything happen instantly. Do you, because I know that you're also co-founder of Byte, like a film production, video production, and you also you created What's Going On in Your Head. Tell me a bit about that.
What's going on in your head? There used to be an amazing space in London called the Hospital Club, or the H Club, and I was a member there, and I went to an event that was run by a person called Liz Smith, and she did this amazing evening show, looking at OCD and obsessive compulsive disorder, and it was just amazing events, and I kind of spoke to her afterwards and saying, right, when's the next one? And she just kind of said, oh no, that's it. I was just doing a project's over. And yeah, I kind of, because of the work I was doing and the people I was meeting around mental health, whether it was people who had been really amazing poets or actors or musicians, and I was like, I said to her, there's no shortage of people I know that we could do more of these types of shows. So yeah, we called it What's Going On in Your Head. We'd pick a theme, and then we would kind of explore that theme through performance art, music. And so you, as an audience member, were coming to an entertaining kind of show. You weren't coming to a mental health talk, um, but it was very, the audience, and we played around with the audience as well. We would change the music. We'd kind of commissioned to try and create a mood. We dressed up some of the performers as waiters, and we'd have, kind of have immersive early days of immersive kind of yeah, performances.
That sounds like quite a messy format that again, but that messiness allows for expression and like creativity. I talked about this with someone else on the podcast, like me live performance allows you to really truly express yourself when it's in a certain realm and it's not well actually I know I go back on those words because live performance often like theatre is totally rehearsed but some isn't when you're doing like a comedy some comedy stand-ups that are improvised or even if you loosely curate something where people can come up and do spoken word and things like that or when you're at like some live music gigs and people just really let themselves go like that's what I think is amazing that you can thrive in these messy environments if you are allowed like that freedom to express yourself.
Yeah, completely. And we we always, every show we would finish it going, wow, that was incredible. But there was real moments of mess in the kind of the pre-production stages where you're like, okay, how are we going to get, Caroline linking in with somebody's, and sometimes you're a bit, because it felt really messy. You're like, oh, are we messing up things that shouldn't be mixed together? So if you take like something like body image, and there was a big kind of body image kind of movement, and then um, right on the other extreme, other people we were working with talking about anorexia and eating disorders, and these were, it was like but we did each show took people on a journey, and yeah, kind of gave us the permission to kind of mix things up that historically wouldn't necessarily be put together.
Wow. Yeah.
um, and
Blending that.
Liz kind of definitely brought that, I guess, that order to the sometimes the people that I was saying, oh, we've got to have this person in it, and she'd be probably thinking, how am I going to make this work?
Yeah, that might clash dramatic. Well, again, that's, because some people would be perhaps find that too much of a risk, or it's, yeah, the potential. I think you have to be respectful to people, obviously. And so if you're going to be blending topics that might be really sensitive to people, then you have to be respectful and flag to people in advance and things like that, and make sure that everybody's comfortable, because you never want to make people feel unnecessarily uncomfortable. But then equally, it could create something beautiful or again, it's just raising awareness, isn't it? Like making people aware of the other's perspective and the other point of view that they just might never have been privy to.
Yeah, we were very mindful for when people entered the space. We did have signs up around that, yeah, I guess kind of telling people that we would be talking about mental health, so people weren't just being dumped into thinking they're just turning up to a comedy. And also signposting was really important throughout all of the shows, so we were making sure that you know people were had access to support and help, so that even if they hadn't experienced those things, they could potentially be good at signposting to somebody else that's going through something similar.
Would you do something like that again? That sounds like something I want to get involved in. we
Okay,
can,
well,
we can take that one away. Let's call Liz.
yeah.
I need to meet her. That's the other thing. Like, but what you were saying, we deal with mess together. I find like that again. When we first met, I was so sort of grateful to you to just pick up on my randomness, and I found out, so you're connected to so many people in the local community and just offered this advice and connection. And yeah, if we could do that more as people, be more open to just connecting others and looking at each other's lives through different perspectives, and that would really really benefit our messy lives.
Yeah. Well, again, like all the work that you're doing to help people as well, I find incredibly inspiring. And yeah, I don't know where you find the time to fit it all in.
I don't either, but I like having these conversations, so it's good. I don't. Um, are you a generally messy person? Like? And let's look at physical
Yeah,
mess.
let's dig into the mess.
Go
Yeah.
on.
So,
What does
so
your house look like?
yeah. What
You,
do you think?
you need
Yeah.
pristine order. I think that you are a late clearer upper. I don't think you ever let anything go to extreme mess, but I think that you maybe let things get a little bit out of control, and then you go, right, it's time to deal with that. I don't know. I'm just making
Yeah,
around.
no, it's good. No, I think you're pretty much spot on. Yeah, yeah, teenage years, all of that. That would have been incredibly messy, I'm sure. And now, because I generally work from home, and so there's nothing like putting the wash on to kind of delay doing some work, is there? So I think the house has never looked cleaner at times because I'm putting off writing that email or doing that presentation. So I've got cleaner, and also, but I think my work life is still quite messy. So uh, So at the moment, I go through phases of really liking to use post-it notes, but then I realize that I have literally millions of post-it notes where I've kind of been, if I've been doing different workshops, I've been doing a project at the moment.
I think that's
And
okay. See, I don't class post-it notes as mess. I think that's
you haven't
this.
seen how many were literally littered across
I
like the
think
whole of,
we're transforming order, we're transforming ideas into something. So having them having visual aids is probably a good thing. I'm talking like plates and food and
yeah.
bags of stuff.
So when I do cook at home, um, and this also nearly creates arguments. I'm kind of a wash as you go kind of person now when I'm kind of cooking. So much so that I would kind of serve everybody else's food up, and then I'll still be at the sink, and say, you eat," and like I was like, "Oh, if I clean this pan now, it will be a lot easier to clean."
Oh no. Okay, so that's actually gone to the opposite extreme. That's
Yeah,
gone that
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to get rid of the mess before you've even. So you're not. No, you've got to allow yourself to eat dinner. Come on.
I know. Yeah, completely. I know I've kind of gone too far now of,
Messiest
um,
food to eat, in your opinion? What's a messy food that you contend with?
so yeah, pasta's pretty bad. I had a coffee this morning and that's obviously not a food, but like, I nearly like threw that down the front. I would have nearly had like a nice kind of coffee stain on my hoodie, for you today. Um, yeah, I do.
Froth is
Yeah,
messy.
I do find that. Yeah, I do.
Frothy drink. I can't say that word actually. Frothy drinks
Frothy.
get
Yeah.
messy.
So that was a bit that was definitely a mess that I made a mess of the table. Luckily, not of myself. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty rubbish when yeah, of most clothes get changed every day. Whether it's some mark or mess from food.
What can you tolerate from other people? Because I find this interesting as well because I don't like a lot of mess. However, I'm having to live in it at the moment as my flat gets turned upside down. But I mean, this here we're talking real mess. Like there's a washing machine in the hallway. There's tiles in boxes all up the stairs. There is a toilet in my daughter's bedroom. It's like, I mean, but maybe again, it's not. It's just it's organized building work that looks
Yeah,
messy.
I'm just going to clarify. Yeah, you are having building work. You just have
Yeah.
not necessarily just decided to buy a
No,
toilet for
there's
your
grout
daughter.
everywhere. They know exactly. There's just stuff. It's like it just feels like there's shit everywhere. There's holes in
Yeah.
walls where things have gone wrong. I'm just like, "Pff," but it's first world problems, isn't it? I'm grateful to be able to do it. To do it. I don't judge people if they're messy though. So I don't like a lot of mess, but I've got a good friend, for example, who she is just a clutter fiend, and this is just papers everywhere, like surfaces not visible. Like, and I go in and I do find it overwhelming, but I don't, it doesn't bother me. I can still tolerate it. What do you find you can work with?
Completely. Like I'm pretty good with other people's mess, not too judgy. Definitely when I used to work in an office and there was a few people who, yeah, really had quite messy desks, and there'd be other people that would be like, "You got to tidy that up." But I'm like, they're really great at their job. They like having lots of information and stuff to hand. So yeah, I don't think I judge other people's mess.
No,
Um,
exactly. That's a good way to put it, is that it's just information everywhere. There you go.
mm,
Again, it's like, what? This isn't mess, this is information.
yeah, exactly.
I like that. This is my information. Leave me alone.
But I
Somebody would
think
say, put it all
I'll
in
go for
notes
it.
on your phone. Some people would just say, get it off your table, put it on your laptop.
But I think one of some of the work I've done, I guess, around mental health and how when, yeah, being a bit messy can then turn into to something more challenging, is yeah around when you're hoarding and the problems that can cause. But some people I know who found themselves in that situation, an amazing service that you just didn't know really existed. That the fire brigade have been coming to visit this person to help with their they're hoarding, and to try and put some solutions in place. And we kind of think of the fire brigade as going to like put out fires, but
So they're just doing that for free as part of the service to help
yeah,
this
yeah,
person.
kind of community
Right.
outreach. And so there's
That's
work that's
amazing.
kind of going on that you wouldn't know that the fire brigade are doing, to, I guess, for their point of view, that if somebody has got that is hoarding a lot, is, there's potential of fire risk to that as well.
Yeah,
So they're trying to, to help there. But I thought that was an amazing service that
yeah.
they
That
can
is
offer.
incredible because I've only really thought of those types of services as being things that you certainly would have to pay for, like an
Mm,
organised service or a cleaning service or a decluttering service, you know. But that's
yeah,
incredible that that's out there. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
it's good.
I wanted to ask you because you've obviously so generously and do speak so openly about your like experiences with your mental health, and I don't want to just presume that if I asked you what's the biggest mess you've ever gotten yourself into, that it would be sort of an episode where you've had like a big period struggling with your mental health. So is there a time or a period or an experience that you've had that you are willing to share? You could have got arrested. You could have fallen out of a tree. You could have. Is there anything, anything that that comes to mind that's like, oh yeah, that I was in a real mess there.
Yeah, I think it probably would be with what I've shared earlier. I think would probably be the biggest mess that I found myself in. I was sectioned when I was in hospital, so I wasn't I wasn't supposed to leave. And I guess one of the situations I did get myself in was a friend Steve came to visit me, and I kind of convinced him that I was allowed to leave, and we went for a little drive. I think I was. He tells me at the time that we used to kind of go swimming when we were at college, kind of probably bunking off lessons and going swimming instead or something. And I said, "Oh, let's go for a swim." And I think she was probably at the time going, "What am I doing?" And he ended up driving me back to my mum's, and then I was, yeah, escorted back to the hospital.
Yeah, how did he get you out? I didn't think that was possible for him to get you out if you
Yeah,
weren't
I have
allowed
no idea. Maybe, just,
to. Like it, clever. We just
yeah,
need to go for a swim. This is really important. Okay,
yeah.
well, I'm glad you
Yeah, we
got your.
didn't go swimming. We went for a drive, but I was, just say, my head was in an absolute mess.
Of course. Of
Um,
course, yeah.
so yeah, so
Understandably.
that, yeah, luckily no arrest.
Mm.
You know, and yeah, we're talking about music as well and kind of gigs, and there's definitely moments where I've kind of, yeah, I think it's yeah, where you've drunk too much, or like, and you just, there's bits of your life. And I guess when I was younger, I didn't have like a big drink problem, but there was definitely, I look back on that now and just thinking that was, alcohol was a really good way of trying to mask some of those feelings and stuff. And you just think, oh my God, how did I get home last night? Or
Yeah. Yeah, you get yourself to such an excessive point that you can actually, yeah, as a male as well, you can easily put yourself in danger. I've definitely done that. I'm over the shame of it, and but now I'm completely sober because I know that I have the potential to take it too far, and also just for me, my general anxiety levels, like it is not conducive to my mental health overall, trying to sustain more of a balance. So yeah, agreed. Alcohol gets us in far too big a mess. Are there any people, they don't have to be celebrities, but are there people that you find extremely inspiring that, you have either you've known directly or indirectly, like, we mentioned Davina McCall, but people that have been through a big mess or have maybe been seen as a liability or
Mhm.
such or similar, but have really come through and made huge steps forward from things. Anyone that you would point to?
Yeah, I guess quite. there's so many people, I guess. I think kind of role models is so important to be able to see whether they're famous or it's your neighbor or whoever that um yeah can make you feel less alone, um so yeah, but being dyslexic as well, I think what was really kind of important to me about being able to, when I talk about having a mental illness, that's something I feel I've kind of got over. I've kind of, got better from to certain extent. Whereas being dyslexic is something that is me, that is who I am. And so some of the, whether it's Jamie Oliver, who's talked very openly about being dyslexic, and mental health side of things, people like Professor Green and campaigner Johnny Benjamin, Stephen Fry, that certain individuals that are in the media.
Doing amazing things that have made brilliant like films and really, really spread the word through broadcast means out there. Yeah, I agree. I do tapping into, I mean, again, we could go on for ages because just conversation around dyslexia. I'm currently going through, my daughter had a screening recently and we're going to go and get her a full diagnosis. And yeah, it's something that you really have to deal with for the rest of your life. And again, on a really basic, superficial level, I don't like saying this, but people can be judged if your writing is messy, if you're getting words wrong, if you're writing everything back to front and your letters aren't correct. Shame on you, especially as a child. I think that is something that really needs to be hopefully worked even further with, because I do think again it's just our national systems, the government, it doesn't provide enough, like so stretched, there isn't enough assistance available within a school to help children one on one that have dyslexia. And so then you have to, again, there's lots of wonderful tools out there, and but it's finding the time to sit with children or with anybody to research and then start to utilize all those things.
Yeah, and like within 100 kids at school, you know, 10% of those would be dyslexic, of which only 2% would get like an actual diagnosis within school that they were, and then as you say, then it's really potluck kind of what support will then be offered after that diagnosis. Um, and my handwriting is an absolute mess, and that's why when computers came along and I could type words out and I could move words around. There's a brilliant charity called Made by Dyslexia, and they have some really good resources on their website, and it's a bit marmite for some people, especially if you're struggling with your dyslexia. They're definitely kind of presenting dyslexia as more of the superpower end of things, and that actually, your way of thinking that, joining the dots, is actually will be more in demand in the future. That kind of way of thinking as we move towards kind of AI and certain processes being um, targeted. Um, so yeah, Made by Dyslexia is really good um, charity, and if you want the kind of the polar opposite, or not the opposite, but something that's maybe a bit dials down the kind of isn't dyslexia great, there's a really good Instagram channel and website called Dyslexia in Adults. So yeah, I recommend those two sites.
Lovely. Thank you for those. Brilliant. Right. Well, I feel as if well, I could talk for ages
Yeah.
constantly to you about so many things, so many strands, all the things. But we should wrap up for today. And I want to finish by asking the question I ask of all my guests, and it comes back to your passion for music.
Hmm.
What is a song or two that make you think that Chris is crystallized by the word mess? It either
Yeah.
got you through a mess or sounds messy, or, just something that if you think of the word mess, what song do you think of?
So yeah, the this may have already come up in other other episodes. But a lot of my new music is now coming through my kids.
Yeah.
Some of it is pretty horrendous. And obviously you can't just listen to just that one track. If you're my kids, they'll play it at least kind of 10 or 20 times in a day just to really make sure it's
Yeah.
getting on your nerves.
Yeah.
So Lola Young and Messi is
Yeah.
being played a lot. And I
Love
think
that.
what's the comedy about it being played at home is it always plays the explicit version.
Oh,
And so
brilliant.
with
So
10-year-old and 12-year-old kids, I'm just going with it now. It's just like,
yeah,
yep, fine.
I love it. Do you know, I've done that with Erin, although she's not listened to that song yet, but it's with a different Olivia Rodrigo song where, yeah, it's just explicit fuck comes up and you're like, oh, there it is again. And she's like, ah. But yeah, no, that Lola Young song's brilliant. And again, it's good. It's just advocating and it's spreading that word of, yeah, let us be ourselves. Let us be a bit messy. Please let me feel that I can be myself more. It's great. It's a really good soundtrack to this era and what we need to start promoting. And hopefully, yeah, she's championing that conversation.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I will offer up for today.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, you've offered up so much, and I really appreciate you talking to me in this somewhat messy format still for this. But just I really want to keep championing our ability to talk more about how we function as humans when we are innately messy and can really encounter mess in our minds. And you are a huge beacon of positivity.
Mess.
You are just mess encapsulated. You're a huge beacon of mess. No, you are a huge beacon for those who may feel a bit messy and want to find somewhere to go or find, somebody to look towards who has really made the most from their experiences. And you're there, like, really talking and pushing things forward. And thank you. I'm grateful for that. And I am going to link through to all of your wonderful endeavors in the show notes below. So everybody, please do check them out. And yes, speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
I am so grateful to you for tuning in and allowing some more mess to be uncovered with me. The Mess We're In is edited by David Strutt, music by Michelle Cade, who you can find on Spotify as Mind Like Water, and I am Liv Nunn. If you enjoyed this episode, it would make such a difference if you can hit follow or subscribe and share in any way. It really helps get this conversation flowing in a less messy manner. If you want to know how to connect with me, all the details are in the show notes. I'll be back very soon to spotlight and honour more of our messy selves. Be open, be kind, be messy.